What if I tell you, in a world where murderers, thieves, and drug dealers roam free, there's one crime that is so heinous, so vile, that it is despised by all of those: child molestation. Prisoners just can't stand it.
I started stabbing Dennis.
The reason I killed him was because he was a child molester.
He needed to be stopped.
I know who you are, I know what you've done.
Child molester Dennis Pegg, killer Clark Fredericks. The courtroom was filled with tension as Clark Fredericks stood before the judge, ready to confess to a heinous crime that had rocked the small town of Pennsville, New Jersey. With tears in his eyes, Fredericks took a deep breath and began his confession.
The main door was open, and we walked in. I started stabbing Dennis. I said over and over to him, "How does it feel raping little kids now?" I also repeated, "It's not so fun raping little kids now, is it?" At the end, I slit his throat.
He admitted to breaking into the home of Dennis Pegg, his former Boy Scout troop leader, and stabbing him over 20 times. But what really shocked the attendees was the reason for his brutal act. Fredericks claimed that Pegg had sexually assaulted and raped him for years when he was just a child, and that he was not the only victim of Pegg's abuse. His best friend, Jeff, who had taken his own life in 1983, was another victim. The courtroom was in tears as Fredericks continued his confession, revealing that Pegg had also emotionally abused and threatened to murder him. Pegg had allegedly controlled him by torturing and killing animals in front of him and threatening to do the same to him if he told anyone about their secret. What really set Fredericks off was the Jerry Sandusky sexual abuse trial. It had opened up old wounds and made him snap. After getting drunk and snorting cocaine, Fredericks and a friend headed to Pegg's house, and he started stabbing him while saying, "How does it feel raping little kids now? It's not so fun raping little kids now, is it?" until he slit his throat. As Fredericks finished his confession, courtroom erupted in applause. Many people, including Rose Funari, whose brother was also allegedly sexually assaulted by Pegg, sympathized with Fredericks. Funari said, "If someone was to hurt my child, I'll be honest with you, there would be no judge, no jury." Fredericks' guilty plea on charges of passion-provocating manslaughter means that he will be sentenced to 5 to 10 years in prison when arraigned in August. And according to Francis Koch, the prosecutor, the defense presented by Fredericks could not be proven false beyond a reasonable doubt. Child molester Charles Parker. Killers Jeremy and Christine Moody. Christine Moody.
I have no regrets. Killing that pedophile was the best day of my life.
Jeremy Moody.
Child molesters do not deserve to live. They got exactly what they deserve. Had to do it over again. I'd kill more.
The Moodys went to church the day they killed Parkers. While in church, they decided to put into motion plans to kill the mechanic and anyone else in his home. They drove to his house and popped the hood like they were having car trouble. And how did Jeremy and Christine kill the victims? When Parker came out to help, Jeremy shot the couple, while Christine slit Gretchen's throat after they told the couple they were going to kill them. This couple from North Carolina, Jeremy Lee Moody and Christine Moody, were sentenced to consecutive life sentences after pleading guilty to murder, kidnapping, burglary, and firearm possession, killing Charles Butch Parker, 59, and his wife, Gretchen Parker, 51, on July 21st, 2013. The reason for killing the Parkers? It's because Charles was a registered sex offender. Initially, the couple seemed apologetic and asked for a 30-year sentence so they could see their children and grow old together. However, after Union County Judge Lee Alford handed down the maximum punishment, they showed their true feelings. Jeremy Moody shouted as he walked out of court, "See you perverts later." Christine Moody told the reporters that she and Jeremy would have done it again if given the opportunity, and that killing the Parkers was the best day of her life. Lawyers for the Moodys said that both defendants were sexually abused as children. They believed they had a divine assignment to kill all sex offenders, and their traumatic pasts, including the childhood sex abuse, fueled their desire for revenge against the type of people who hurt them. Jeremy Moody even wrote the name and address of another sex offender on a sheet of paper in his home and told police he was going to kill that person the next day if he had not been arrested. Child molester Lawrence V. Scully. Killer Levi Axtel. Let's listen to this news report.
He admitted to entering Scully's home and hitting him over the head 15 to 20 times with a spade-style shovel. He finished him off by hitting his head several times with a large moose antler.
In Grand Marais, Minnesota, a citizen reported to the Cook County Sheriff's Office that he had heard someone smash a vehicle and then run into Scully's house. The citizen heard screaming from the house before the person drove to the police station.
The person who claimed to do the assaulting came into our law enforcement center and turned himself in.
Levi Axtel, a 27-year-old father, walked into a Minnesota police office drenched in blood and admitted to attacking Lawrence V. Scully, a 77-year-old man who has previously been convicted of molesting a 6-year-old girl in 1979. Scully was found dead at his residence. As per court documents, Axtel informed the police that he had hit Scully with a shovel multiple times and then finished him off with a moose antler. The reason behind Axtel's actions was his suspicion that Scully was stalking his young daughter at her daycare. In the probable cause affidavit obtained by Fox News Digital, Axtel had expressed his belief that Scully had a history of sexually offending children. He stated that he had observed Scully parked his vehicle in locations where children were present, and he feared that Scully would reoffend. The criminal complaint revealed that Axtel had previously filed an order of protection against Scully in 2018, but it was later dropped. The reason for the order being dropped is unclear. Child molester Matteo Condaluchcci, killer James Fairbanks.
I knew I had to shoot. But my intention was not to walk over there and just shoot him, period.
James Fairbanks visited Condalucci's residence on the evening of May 16, 2020, with the intention of cautioning him against harming any children. However, the situation escalated, and Fairbanks shot Condalucci 4 times, resulting in his death. Matteo Condaluchcci, 64, was a registered sex offender in Omaha, Nebraska in May 2020. Fairbanks was a former schoolteacher, divorced, and a father of 2. His ex-wife Kelly Tomeo revealed that he had learned about Condalucci's past as a sex offender while searching for a home in the neighborhood. Tomeo suggested that Fairbanks felt a responsibility to act after spending years working with abused children. Tomeo said that her ex-husband was concerned about Condalucci's presence in the neighborhood and suspected him of acting suspiciously around children. According to the Nebraska Sex Offenders Registry, Condalucci was arrested in 1994 in Florida for attempting to sexually touch a child under 16 and was later arrested in Nebraska for sexually assaulting a child in 2007. Fairbanks received a lot of support on social media, including a Facebook page called Freedom for James Fairbanks. Amanda Henry, Condalucci's daughter and a supporter of Fairbanks, told KMTV that she was a victim of sexual abuse by her father as a child and does not hold any anger towards her father's killer.
I would love to see him released.
I would love to see him released. Child molesters Gary Lee Blanton Jr. and Jerry Wayne Ray. Killer Patrick Drum.
It was never my intent to hurt the families involved. That's like collateral damage that I feel bad about.
Patrick Drum, 34, hailed by some as a vigilante hero and others as a cold-blooded killer, called the grief the victims' families felt collateral damage that I feel bad about. He fatally shot his roommate, Gary Lee Blanton Jr., aged 28, and another man, Jerry Wayne Ray, aged 55. His reason? Because they were sex offenders. Blanton had been convicted in 2001 as a teenager of third-degree rape, while Ray was convicted in 2002 of first-degree rape of a child. Both Blanton and Ray lived in Drum's neighborhood, and Blanton's family said he and Drum had been friends for 9 years before the murder. The Clallam County Sheriff's Department released a statement indicating that the evidence suggested that Drum had a particular animus towards sex offenders and wanted to kill more of them. The police found an abandoned rental car issued to him, along with a note apologizing for the disturbances and an empty box of 9mm bullets. In court documents, he admitted that he intended to drive to another county and kill a third sex offender. Drum pleaded guilty to the double murder and told Judge Ken Williams in July that he wanted to represent himself because he stood up for his belief and the attorneys did not have the same belief. Drum's supporters filled the courtroom during his sentencing, but Clallam County prosecuting attorney Deb Kelly called it despicable and disgusting that some people saw him as a hero for the premeditated murders. The murders sparked a massive police manhunt for Drum, who said he would have killed more sex offenders if he had not been caught. During the sentencing, the prosecutor blasted Drum for killing 2 men with families, and Drum interrupted her, but eventually refused to apologize for the murders. Drum stated that it was never his intent to hurt the families, and he asked his supporters to leave the grieving family members alone. The judge sentenced Drum to 2 life sentences without parole, as well as several years for burglary and unlawful possession of a weapon by a felon. Child molester Raymond Earl Brooks. Killer Jay Maynor.
But police say Maynor eventually shot Raymond Brooks dead at Brooks's home.
Even child molesters are not safe in their own homes. In 2014, Jay Maynor, a father from Alabama, fatally shot Raymond Earl Brooks when he learned that his daughter Julia had been molested by him more than a decade before. Following the shooting, Maynor also fired shots into a convenience store after seeing his stepdaughter's allegedly abusive ex-boyfriend, who escaped unharmed. Brooks sexually abused his adopted granddaughter Julia over a period of 4 or 5 years. Starting when she was just 8 years old, Brooks had adopted Julia from her mother at birth, and she knew him as her father father until she turned 21. Julia Maynor, now a 24-year-old mother of 3, said the shooting was prompted by the abuse she said to her father, Jay. I haven't seen Raymond in years. It was just something I said out of anger to my father. Julia further said that her father had accepted the plea deal so that she would not have to testify in court and relive the traumatic experiences she had suffered at Brooks' hands. She emphasized that her father was acting as any protective father would and praised him for being an amazing and loving father. Maynor received a total of 40 years in prison, with 20 years added for the attempted murder in addition to the 20 years for Brooks' death. Child molesters: Brian Hunsaker and Nicholas Anderson. Killer: Rocky Ali Beamon. Rocky Ali Beamon was a man with a mission to rid the world of sex offenders. He had a burning hatred for those who preyed on the vulnerable, and he was determined to keep killing until he could kill no more. He killed 2 child molesters who were both serving time in jail. How? For Brian Hunsaker, he stalked him, choked him, and stabbed him 80 times using a shank. And for Nicholas Anderson, bound him, strangled him, and cut his neck with a shank. He already killed once in prison, taking the life of fellow inmate Brian Hunsaker, a registered sex offender, in a gruesome shower attack. But that wasn't enough for Beamon. In a chilling letter to Judge Christopher Patterson, Beamon wrote of the best feeling he had when he killed sex offenders and pledged to continue until he was stopped. In his letter, he also told Patterson, I'll do my best to eliminate every single one of them until one of 3 things happens. 1, someone kills me. 2, I run out of people to kill. Or 3, they put me where I can kill no more. Death row. If you want to send me to death row, I vow to dedicate my next killing to you. Beamon's wish was finally granted when he was sentenced to death for the murder of Nicholas Anderson, his cellmate at the Santa Rosa Correctional Institution. Anderson was serving time on a child molestation charge and was found bound, strangled, and cut with a homemade weapon. Beamon had been held in close management in a single-man cell at the Florida State Prison prior to his sentencing. Child molester Theodore Dyer. Killer Stephen Sanderson. Stephen Sanderson, a convicted murderer serving life without parole for murdering his girlfriend in Wayne County in 1991, admitted to killing his prison cellmate Theodore Dyer by strangulation. But what actually made Sanderson snap? Sanderson even told Dyer to be quiet, and when he wouldn't, this was when Sanderson hit him in the face and wrapped a cord around his neck. He killed Dyer because he had molested a child and tried to justify it.
But he continued to talk about it and try to justify it, so he was a little bit bigger than me, so I got down and I hit him in his face a few times, and when he fell, I wrapped a cord around his neck and I took his life.
Sanderson told the detectives that he believed Dyer deserved to die and that he had no empathy for people who committed such heinous crimes. In a video recording of Sanderson's confession, he explained to the detectives that he does what he considers necessary, even if it involves taking someone's life.
Murdering somebody's not a good thing, but I mean, Jesus, man, if the things this guy did, things he said he did, I wouldn't want someone like that on the street.
For sure, he knows murdering is not good, but he believed he was just doing what needs to be done. But does he feel bad for what he did?
I don't feel bad for what I did, you know. I feel bad for maybe the families, his family or something. But as far as remorse towards him, no.
Thomas asked Sanderson if he believed that Dyer got what he deserved, to which Sanderson replied that he believed it with all his heart. Child molesters David Bobb and Graham DeLuise Conti. Killer Jonathan Watson. Being a lifer, I'm in a unique position where I sometimes have access to these people, and I have so little to lose. Trust me, we get it. These people are every parent's worst nightmare, and I recall saying, I got this, and I picked up the cane and went to work on him. Jonathan Watson is a 44-year-old inmate at the California Substance Abuse Treatment Facility and State Prison in Corcoran. He is serving a life sentence after murdering a marijuana grower in 2008, but one incident in January 2020 brought Watson to the forefront of national attention. He wrote a letter to the Bay Area news group confessing to beating 2 men to death with a cane. According to a tweet by Nate Gartrell, this week Jonathan Watson sent me a 4-page letter confessing to killing 2 child molesters in prison. He also said that he warned the prison that violence was coming, and he was able to beat 2 people to death with a cane without guards noticing. In Watson's letter to the Bay Area news group, he explained that as a lifer, he has access to these people and so little to lose. He knew that these child molesters were every parent's worst nightmare, and he simply couldn't take it anymore. In his letter, he said he had also warned his counselor about his intentions before the attack. He urged the counselor to transfer him out of the unit before he did something bad. Unfortunately, the counselor scoffed and dismissed Watson's warning, which turned out to be a fatal mistake. He was moved from his solitary cell to a dormitory pod, and that's where he found himself face to face with a child molester. What pushed him to the brink is when one of the men began watching PBS Kids in front of the other prisoners. He believed the man began taunting other inmates by watching children's television programs. Watson's instincts told him that he had to take action, and he knew he had so little to lose. As I got to the lower tier, I saw a known child trafficker, and I figured I'd just do everybody a favor, Watson wrote. He picked up a walking cane and beat the first man to death. Then, on his way to turn himself in, he came across another convicted child rapist and attacked him as well. The victims, David Bobb, 48, died that day, and Graham DeLuise Conti, 62, died 3 days later at a hospital. Both were serving life sentences for aggravated sexual assault of a child under 14. Child molester, Robert Munger. Killer, Shane Goldsby. This is a case where one can say it's a small world, because what are the odds that a child molester is put in the same cell as their victim's elder brother? Matter of fact, let's take it a step further. Just how dangerous is this situation? As you'll soon see, very dangerous. Shane Goldsby, 26, a Washington state inmate, was sentenced to another 25 years in prison for murdering his 70-year-old cellmate, Robert Munger, in June 2020. The reason? Munger was the guy who raped his sister. They put me in a position where I shouldn't even be in. This shouldn't have happened at all. You're talking about this dude who did some sick, twisted things to my little sis, my family, my blood, my life. And you want to put me face to face with this dude? Goldsby said. And how? Goldsby hit Munger in the face and head area about 14 times, stomped on his head at least 4 times, and kicked a couple more times before walking away and being taken into custody by Airway Heights correctional guards. What made Goldsby snap is when Munger began teasing him about the rape, which was later proven true. Goldsby told the New York Post, "I had so much stuff going on in my head," he told the outlet. "I wasn't stable at that point. I wasn't. I was getting to that point because Munger kept wanting to give me details about what happened, what he did, about the photos and the videos of him doing this stuff. It was building up." When a KHQ news reporter asked Goldsby what he thought when he realized it was Munger who raped his sister, Goldsby said, "I was in shock. I was like, what the f***? This stuff doesn't happen. You're talking the same institution, the same unit, the same pod, in the same cell as this dude. That's like hitting the jackpot in the casino 7 times. It was still unclear why Goldsby was transferred to the same prison cell as Munger at Airway Heights Correctional Center. Prior to that, he was transferred multiple times to different correctional centers, including Shelton, Walla Walla, and Clallam Bay. I was questioning things on what was going on. Why is all this going on? But like I said, I gave my life to God in 2019. I quit gangbanging. I was doing good. Put me in the same cell as this dude. I feel set up. I'm the victim," Goldsby said. Child molesters, Joseph Gray and William Elliott. Killer, Stephen Marshall. Stephen Marshall, an American-Canadian vigilante, referred to pedophiles as scums of the earth. This led him to search publicly available sex offender registries in the United States for their whereabouts. Out of 34 sex offenders listed on the Maine registry, Marshall took down the information on 29 of them. He traveled to Maine in the northeastern United States to visit his father, and this is how the killings began. One night, when his car had broken down during the drive, he borrowed his father's truck and took a .45 handgun from him, which he used for shooting Joseph Gray and William Elliott. Marshall killed the two in their homes. Eventually, when the police stopped the bus he was aboard that evening, Marshall shot himself in the head. We'll never know what he was thinking when he committed suicide. His laptop revealed that he'd also gone to the residences of 4 other sex offenders. Some lesser-known whys and hows of killed child molesters. There are other reports of prisoners who killed molesters. However, some admit and some deny, while some are still under investigation. The question is, did they kill them because they're child molesters, or is it about something else? I'll let you be the judge. Child molester Richard Huckle. Killer Paul Fitzgerald. So, how did a prisoner named Paul Fitzgerald, who himself was a sex offender, kill Richard Huckle, Britain's worst pedophile, serving 22 life sentences for abusing 191 children? He bound his wrists and ankles with cable ties, strangled him with an electrical cable sheath, forcibly inserted a pen into his brain, and penetrated his anus with a blunt object. Fitzgerald is on trial for murder and denies the charges. The court was told that Fitzgerald planned the attack carefully to humiliate and degrade Huckle for the crimes he had committed, crime being a pedophile. Fitzgerald told prison staff that he planned to murder 2 or 3 people, but he found he was having too much fun with Huckle. A post-mortem examination concluded that Huckle died from strangulation using a ligature made from an electrical cable sheath. Fitzgerald, who was suffering from mixed personality disorder, psychopathy, and general identity disorder at the time of the killing, is claiming manslaughter by diminished responsibility. Child molester John Giogan. Killer Joseph L. Druce.
That a person may not publicly act as a priest, is not a priest, may not present himself as a priest, and that has obvious...
Father John Giogan, a serial child molester within the Boston Archdiocese, was stripped of his priestly status by the Vatican on June 5, 1998. Giogan was the first priest within the Boston Archdiocese to be removed from the clergy, but in 2003, Joseph L. Druce removed him from the face of the earth. How? By tying Giogan's hands behind his back with a sheet, gagging him and repeatedly jumping onto his body. Not contented enough, enough, beat him with his fists. According to Leslie Walker, the executive director of Massachusetts Correctional Legal Services, it was the responsibility of the Department of Corrections to ensure the safety of a high-profile inmate like Giogan. She stated that it was expected that such a prisoner would be vulnerable to attacks, and the department failed in its duty to protect him. It is unclear whether Giogan and Druce had any prior conflicts or knew each other before being in prison together. State Representative Demetrius J. Atsalis noted that while the reason for the attack may never be fully understood, it is commonly known that child molesters are often viewed as the most despised individuals in prison and are frequently targeted. Child molester David Osias Ramirez, killer Paul Dixon. David Osias Ramirez, who was serving a life sentence for lewd and lascivious molestation of an 11-year-old girl, was found dead in his cell at Duval County Jail on July 30th. How? According to anonymous sources, Ramirez was beaten and drowned in the cell's toilet after a verbal altercation. Suspect Paul Dixon, his cellmate, was charged with second-degree murder for the incident. Dixon had previously been convicted of murder as a juvenile and was serving a life sentence. Crime and safety analyst Ken Jefferson said, "When men go to jail accused, convicted of hurting a child, there's no peace in jail." Child molester Clinton Don Simpson. Killer David Faustino Flores. Don's whistle stopped whistling, but Clinton Don Simpson, a 76-year-old from Texas, was killed in prison by another inmate, David Faustino Flores. He sustained blunt force injuries to his head. Clinton Don Simpson from Keller, Texas, ran a kiddie train ride named Mr. Don's Whistle Shop. This at his home, where he hosted birthday parties for children. However, in 2007, Simpson was accused by multiple children of molesting them, with one of the victims being a 3-year-old girl. He was charged with more than a dozen counts of aggravated sexual assault, indecency with a child, and sexual abuse. Simpson was declared mentally incompetent and was held in state hospitals for a while. Eventually, he returned to the Tarrant County Jail to await an independent evaluation after being found competent to stand trial. Simpson's criminal attorney declined to comment on his killing. Despite the accusations, Simpson was described as a kind family man who loved God and was a great preacher by those who knew him. Child molester Mitchell Harrison. Killers Nathan Mann and Michael Parr. This next case is not for the faint of heart, but a gruesome murder happened because two sadists wanted to prove themselves as hard men. Even the most hardened of guards in Durham's Franklin jail were not spared from shock by what happened to Mitchell Harrison, a prisoner who was serving an indeterminate sentence for raping a 13-year-old girl in Kendall, Cumbria. Sadist Michael Parr, 33, and double murderer Nathan Mann, 23, attacked Harrison. They dragged him into his cell, covered his mouth to silence his screams, and disemboweled him, medieval torture style. It was said that Parr and Mann fantasized about cannibalism and initially intended to share Harrison's liver, but when he was found dead, they could not bring themselves to try it. They said they had chosen him because he was arrogant and they didn't like him. One source described what a disturbed individual Mann was. He initially attempted to get a pen into his skull through his eye, but said that it had not killed him and made him struggle all the more. He then said about disemboweling him, and he recalled how hard it had been to keep him down even when he thought he was dead. When asked why he had done it, he gave no real reason. He did not like Harrison, but he had not crossed him in any way. He just thought he was a bit cocky. We believe he wanted to enhance his reputation with other inmates. He was completely cold, unemotional, and without any remorse. He could have been describing a trip to the shops. Child molester Liam Dean. Killer John Westland. With shards of glass found on a chair near the bunk bed, Liam Dean was found bloodied in his cell at HMP Leeds. He also showed signs of asphyxiation. A prisoner named John Westland was found guilty by a jury for the murder of his cellmate, Liam Dean. He had been convicted for the murder of his 2-day-old daughter. He told the Westland police, "I murdered him because he is a sex offender." During the trial, Westland claimed that Dean was regularly called a baby killer by other prisoners and had faced daily threats and taunting because of his conviction. According to Judge Jameson, it was unclear whether Westland killed Dean for his own satisfaction, to curry favor with others, or on the orders of other inmates. Child molester Jason Turnbull. Killer Timothy Dickerson. Timothy Ronald Dickerson pled guilty to the second-degree murder of Jason Nathaniel Turnbull of Brighton, a prisoner convicted of third-degree criminal sexual conduct, as well as a minimum 1-year prison term for multiple convictions of fourth-degree CSC. Prison staff responded to an assault taking place between the two cellmates. Later on, Turnbull was found unresponsive and pronounced dead later that night. It was still a mystery how the killing took place exactly. According to the Michigan Department of Corrections spokesman Chris Gautz, no weapon was found in the cell. Prisoner or free man, some or most of them just had enough. They felt like they were doing the world a favor.
97% to 3%. You said you think it's an impossible transformation Once a sex offender, always a sex offender.
Opinions are mixed regarding these killings. Some condone. It made me mad. They was laughing about what they did, took somebody's life the way they did it. Nobody should die like that. Nobody. Brenda Franklin, sister of Charles Parker. But some are relieved about the killings. Amanda Henry, daughter of Matteo Condaluchcci, in sympathy to her father/molester's killer, said,
I've been through so much hurt and pain. There were many times I wanted to do it myself, but I didn't want to give up my freedom, my family. You know, somebody had to stay behind to protect them, and that's me.
Thinking that they only did what's best, do these child molested killers see themselves as heroes?
You know, since this all happened, it's kind of been, people think I'm some kind of hero, but I'm actually not. I just, did what I thought was best in the time that I was given.
How about the families left behind?
There's no way to explain how horrible it is to watch your babies say their final goodbyes to their daddy. Trying to wake him up. Shaking him, crying, "Daddy up, Daddy up."
Analyzing the hows and whys, the answer is simple as to why there is this sense of intense animosity towards child molesters. Many inmates have children or younger relatives whom they perceived vulnerable to these predators. Some of the prisoners themselves were sexually abused as children and never had the chance to fight back. Some took revenge, but their common denominator? They see these offenders as the lowest of the low, and they have no sympathy for them whatsoever.
You can't even know what damages you've done for sexual gratification.